Hello and welcome to another episode of Being Human. And I'm very privileged today to have the beautiful soul Frven joining me. He is an incredible soul, and I look forward to having a magnificent conversation with him. Frven, how are you?
Very good. A bit hot at the
It,
moment.
it's London and it's very hot, yes. We're not used to
Yeah,
this heat.
that's right. Yeah. You wonder why you should book a holiday, yeah? And when I get back to Singapore in 2 weeks' time, I'm gonna be like struggling with the cold there
Cold?
because it's too hot here. It's so hot here. I'm gotten used to it, and then when I get to Singapore, will feel quite cool.
Feel quite cool, but also I think probably Singapore probably has a lot more air conditioning units than
Yeah, that's right.
London
Yeah,
does.
yeah. That's what I raised my daughters with saying. Like in Singapore, it's around the same temperature, but we escape into air-conditioned spaces.
And here, of
How you
course, in
manage it.
in the UK, we have very few air
Yeah,
conditioned
yeah.
homes or
Yeah.
shops.
Yeah. So you and I, we know each other through BNI. So of late, the people in BNI chapters whose business is air conditioning, they're busy.
Yes, they are very busy. In fact, my friend's Aaron.
Yeah,
He's getting up to 100 inquiries a day,
yeah,
and he just doesn't have the bandwidth to
yeah,
even answer them. He just
yeah,
can't, right?
yeah.
And of course, the manufacturers or the suppliers don't have any stock anymore anyway. So
That's right.
it's one of those catch-22 situations. You left it too late. You don't have air conditioning, and you can't even buy a fan anymore. So you just
Yeah,
got to open the window and hope for the best.
yeah.
So tell me about the Ministry of Happier.
Okay. So the Ministry of Happier, firstly, technically, you can think of it as the Ministry of Happiness, but the Ministry of Happier, using the word happier is deliberate because there's this concept of us becoming more aware that we can work on our own journey of becoming happier. And the underpinning logic really is that for each of us, fundamentally, regardless of whatever we're pursuing, maybe wealth, good fortune, or industry recognition, it it's been studied and it still goes to this primary desire to be happy.
Mhm.
Like if you ask any parent that if there's only one thing that you can give your child and there's only one thing that you can wish for, most parents will say, I just want them to be happy, whether they're rich, poor, successful or not, but I want them to be happy. So obviously many of us will be having a little bit of a debate like, but what is happiness? That in
Mm.
itself is a different big discussion.
Conversation, yes.
Yeah. But happiness is, I suppose, simply put, when something that we feel inside, and we're not talking about that transient version, we're talking about a sensation and an experiencing peace, calm, and being, feeling that things are in balance, that we're not in in an argument with our environment or having conflicts with people that we care about, that things just feel warm, comfortable, and we have joy, in our hearts. I mean, the Dalai Lama would describe, I mean, not that I have a conversation with him ever before, but I borrow his term warm-heartedness. You feel this thing called warm-heartedness. Like it just feels warm, comfortable, and it's a sensation of joy. So the Ministry of Happier is something that I feel compelled to do for the second half of my life. So the first half of my adulthood, 25 years, I was an architect. In some
That's very
ways,
different from
yeah,
the Ministry of Happier.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So the Ministry of Happier started because I went to the deepest, darkest, and the most horrible place because I had severe burnout. And the severe burnout was led to because I was very, very successful. So in some ways, you know, who knows, right? I mean, like, as in our life, sometimes we don't know whether something that we're experiencing now is really that good or really that bad, because good things become bad, bad things become good. So I was top 20 architect in Singapore at the young age of 39. And because I was a scholar from the government, so I was given loads of opportunities to show that I am capable. And maybe coupled with some good luck, I got to a position at the age of about 39 to be the lead for 260 over architectural staff running 10 design studios. And that was like, whoa, glory days. But then, actually, on hindsight, that was also the beginning of the steep decline of my physical and mental health. So, graphically, if when I think about it, I visualize my career, prestige, industry recognition was going up a steep curve, but unbeknownst to me, mirrored on the x-axis was my physical and mental health,
Mm.
because I didn't learn, or there was no one to caution me that, as things go well, there are like responsibilities, and I need to learn skills on how to manage um, what my mental capacity or my natural waking hour can handle. And what that meant is, this good, very good success, something that really good, in terms of my bank account, in terms of everything else, was also very significantly eroding my physical and mental health. I mean, you're talking about, like, I knew that my back was causing me some grief. I paid all the money to go to the chiropractor to have it looked at, did all the X-rays, but I never went for any one session because the appointments on my diary, work-related commitments, were more important than going to sort out my aching back. So,
Wow.
not knowing how to prioritize, and I suppose when each of us are a bit younger, we feel like Superman. So,
Yes. So
I
true.
mean, yeah, we feel like, oh, this little bit of nagging pain will subside, or we can put up with it. And often the time, as if we are go-getters, we kind of get sidetracked. We can get distracted by the adrenaline of whatever we're working on. May it be a project, or maybe, something really important that we're placing all our attention on, and we can push aside the discomfort or the pain. But hey, as we get older, that it comes back to haunt us, don't they?
It certainly
Yeah.
does, and I'm guessing that not many people, not many listeners will envisage that an architect would ever reach a point of burnout. But
Yeah.
then we don't realize how burnout affects everybody, or can
Yeah.
affect everybody.
Yeah.
And so it was through the actual burnout that you actually what stopped being an architect completely. Do
Yeah.
you?
So the burnout was significant enough to make me feel compelled to extract myself from the Singapore industry where I was successful at. Um, just moving from out of Singapore was itself, I had to gather quite a bit of determination and courage, and that was 11 years ago.
Wow.
And when I got to the UK, situations, opportunities, and my network led me to work ambition or pushing myself too far. But when lockdown came, um, my innermost uncomfortable feelings about managing professional relationships, seeking work, and you know the looming possibility of retrenching staff, all those things kind of snowballed into the most horrific version of burnout that I experienced. I was feeling, I was having suicidal thoughts and things like that. So it kind of went to the most extreme.
Wow. And that's not a good place at all.
Yes. Yes.
And now you talk about it being difficult to extract yourself. How did you just reach a point where you just said no, enough, I'm going, or was there a phase in, phase out period?
There was a phasing, but it wasn't as I planned. The story is, I decided that I was going to, be put effort into read. So at that time when I was struggling, I tried everything, and the short story is I ended up having to go onto medication, which was something that I resisted for a very long time. But then I read up a lot about positive psychology, neuroscience, and the impact of severe stress and depression, and how we can technically damage both our mental health and our physiological health through prolonged chronic stress. I was able to kind of get myself to understand the logic of, and I'll use an analogy. Say if we have a motor car and something's wrong with the motor car, maybe because one the conduit that does lubrication is not feeding properly, and of course you're going to start getting some squeaks and some unusual noises. But if you push that aside, the car still moves.
Mm.
If you ignore it, put on earphones, the car still moves, and then a few weeks later you get noises coming from another part of the automobile, and more. And if you don't take action, more and more noises and more discomfort arises from this machine that was previously working. And imagine if you allowed this to exist for 10 years, the different hoses and the pipes that was channeling lubrication, or maybe the moving parts that are no longer working properly, reaches a point where you can't just spray some WD-40 and expect the whole machine to roll back into action. And
Right.
this is when you really need some major intervention. It's like it could be like an engine overhaul, or you really need to be taken apart. So our physical body is no different.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
that's why I'm so passionate about cautioning people, because too often we push the science aside, the symptoms or the science aside, because
Mm.
our modern day living is hard. We've got bills to pay. We've got so many different things to pay attention to. So we put our own health and our own self care probably quite far down the priority list.
I agree with that because I always see clients always putting themselves last when in fact you've got to put yourself first. You've got to treat
Yeah,
yourself like that car. You've got to put the right fuel
yeah,
in so that
yeah,
you can do what you do in this world. And if
yeah,
you're not doing that, just
yeah,
like that car, you're going to have all sorts of knocks and pains and issues that are going to stop you from running.
yeah. So that was why I kind of convinced myself that perhaps because I've given my physical body so much neglect that it needs the artificial intervention just
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
allow some conduits to flow, have something to supplement the machine to get it working. And it was I was able to get better clarity. I felt after about 2 months of medication like who I was 10 years before. Not talking
Mm.
about physical strength, but in terms of like, being able to see that, hey, some things could go well, some things might not go well, but it's all right. It's okay. As compared to like feeling that there is the stormy cloud there permanently, which is so infuriating. And that then got me to sort myself out and gaining the last burst of determination that I was going to exit from professional practice fully and to reinvent myself. And that was really the beginning toward the earlier iteration of the Ministry of Happier.
You're known in the networking world as the guy with the ukulele. And it's right there. So
It's always somewhere near me.
it's never far away then, obviously, which
Yeah,
is
it's
great.
not.
So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm guessing that is one of the tools that brings you a form of joy, a bit of happiness.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah. So, of course, to each of us, because of our belief system, how we grew up, where we come from, what's our kind of philosophical attitude to life, we look into different directions, or we lean on different things to seek refuge or to gain calm. But what's interesting is in the conversation of spreading happiness and joy, one universal language is music. So I
Mm.
myself learned music. Not, I mean, I grew up from a reasonably poor family, so I never had the chance to learn an instrument or to have any kind of music class. And it was about 15 years ago when I wanted to serve in Sunday school church, and one of the ways to communicate with children was through the songs, right? And music is the universal language. So um, I've tried to learn the guitar, but the guitar does have a steep curve of journeying towards being able to play properly the beginning few chords. So ukulele, four strings, that's simple, and it's something that one could self-learn. And I taught myself simple chords, and got on from there to play a few standard songs. And I can't read the music, but I can read, the different chords, and I could improvise. And from there on, I've been serving Sunday school for more than 10 years. And when I started to go onto this journey of thinking about the ministry of happier, in the beginning, it was primarily the offering of coaching work, which I still do have it as something available. But one of the instruments of getting people to go into dialogue about happiness is through experiencing joy and maybe camaraderie in team building program. And music seemed to be like the perfect instrument, for lack of a better word, like, two different ways of using the word. I mean, pardon the pun, like it's an instrument for us to talk about joy, happiness. And just like today in my BNI chapter, I played, often I play like just a couple of stanzas. And I nowadays I go to a care home. I have one program where I go to a care home. I do a 45 minutes. You
Yeah,
can
I'd like to tell us more about that care
yeah,
home program because that's
yeah.
back, isn't it?
So I go to a care home. It's 45 minutes ukulele sing along. I curate 20 songs that people who are in care homes are familiar with, and it is so heartwarming when you get someone who doesn't even recognize their family members, that they will be mouthing the words of songs, because the songs that they're familiar with is so deeply ingrained in their memory, and you see them smiling and having a bit of joy. And to one of the ways to talk about happiness is to actually open up an opportunity for people to experience it. You literally experience it. So that's why I have team building programs, which is learn to play the ukulele. I go to care homes and I do this thing, and it is one of the services that I provide. But in some ways, it's wonderful to not to earn my keep and not have to feel like it is work, because it's like I'm enjoying the session as much as
You
you
know
know.
what? There's nothing wrong with having joy and enjoying what
Yeah,
you do and having
yeah,
happiness through what you do because that's
yeah,
really what you should be doing.
yeah. And so it is like really what I call the most amazing sweet spot, because when it all comes together, and it is the most fantastic version of a reward. And before this podcast, I was saying I want to thank you. Do you know what I want to thank you about, Oliver? So the care home program actually was something that was simmering in my head for a while, but it must be 8 to 10 weeks ago, 2.5 3 months ago, when we had our a conversation. And I remember you were sharing. I asked you a question like how you got started when you were in the early days, when you were trying to share with people what you were offering to the world. And I might even have misunderstood,
It's
but
okay.
anyway, but you told me there was one period you stood at central London. I remember Tottenham Court Road. You said, like, you were just handing out leaflets, and then you cracked a joke about it. A lady came up to you and said, "Just pass me a stack, and you can then finish, because if you're
Yes,
paid to give out the
yes,
leaflet,
that
I'll
is
help you
exactly
get the
right.
job done quicker, right?" And then you were saying like, "Oh, but it is my leaflet." That little detail actually was a strong trigger, because that detail was it ignited a nudge in my mind or in my heart, that if I want to, if I think this care home thing has got legs to bring me somewhere, both in many different layers of it, then I should get off my backside and just give it a go and try. I wasn't, I mean, I prepared information, my landing pages and all that. I printed out leaflets, but I wasn't going to sit there and like try to, because I've tried emailing people, but I mean, in today's digital age, everyone's spammed with too much information. So I end up using AI to research which could be the care homes that could fit, my possible like um that could appreciate my service. And I went knocking on doors, and it's been 8 weeks since I knocked on the first door, and I've been to 30 care homes.
Wow. I had
30 k.
no idea that it was so
Yeah,
much. I knew you'd started,
yeah,
but that's
yeah.
incredible. That's
I've been
amazing.
I've knocked on the doors of 30 care homes,
Yeah.
and I have had 17 of them booked my taster session, and I have delivered 12 of the 17 taster sessions, with two of them committed to fortnightly or monthly programs henceforth. And the and it's like a musical chair, right? So I must first knock on the door, and they get intrigued and they say, okay, we'll get you in for a taster session. Taster session went well. They want to have more such sessions in the future. And then, I'm confident that come autumn, I would have a string of maybe 10 centers where I will regularly service.
And you know that
And
so sorry to interrupt you there, but one of the
yeah,
biggest things with this is it's great to have the idea, and that's just the spark,
yeah,
right? That's just,
yeah,
and then you've got to have the thoughts about it. But the
yeah,
biggest thing you got to do is take action.
yeah,
And
yeah,
taking action in today's world is not just sending an email, because
yeah,
I'll be honest, we all get
yeah,
so many emails that you
yeah,
just get lost in a
yeah,
store
yeah,
that are you scan through and delete mostly. Let's
yeah.
be honest.
Yeah, and the real data is such that the places where I'm doing taster sessions or who might have even booked me after the taster session were places where and people that I've sent emails to. But
Yes.
I mean, the emails didn't work. Uh, well, one of the ways, but it's not the most effective. I mean, it's still human contact, face
Human
to face.
contact is so key in this world, and something that you probably don't know is that
Mm.
during lockdown I was actually working for a care home as in the events in the events in the recreational things. So I used to read poetry, I used to gardening with them,
Yes.
and working on also, like you mentioned, the dementia uh,
Yeah.
ward with
Yeah.
people, but so
Yeah.
rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. Uh, 2 days ago, I had a one-to-one conversation over Zoom with a DC, a BNI DC, Annalisa. I believe you will know her. Or I do think that she does know you, Annalisa, and she's a voiceover artist. So she does. She takes your a physical book, and then she makes it into an audiobook.
Okay, I don't
So
remember her. Maybe I'd
yeah,
have met her, but I
so
can't place it
Annalisa,
right now.
double barrel name with her, got her, just like your conversation with me, nudged me towards an action that I was perhaps procrastinating or hesitant about. Sometimes we don't want, it's because we fear rejection. Yeah, we fear like knocking on the door and having the door slammed in our face doesn't feel good. But then, hey, like you ask and the answer is yes or no. Sometimes it's a no, but if we don't ask, there is almost never a yes answer. So
There's never, there can't be, can there? How can,
yeah,
if you don't
because you
ask,
never,
it's
yeah,
not going to be
you
a
don't
yes
even ask,
answer
right?
because you haven't asked
Yeah,
the question.
yeah. But Annalisa then got the idea that, hey, that's interesting. Maybe I might be interested to go to a care home and read poetry or to read stories. And got something in her thinking, whether is a fee generating business stream or whether it's something that she's quite happy to do pro bono because it might reward her by bringing her joy and good comfort in her heart.
As
So
we
yeah,
grow and as we get older and hopefully wiser,
yeah,
we start to realize that it's about giving back that is so
yeah,
important.
yeah,
When you're in your youth, you're out there to make your mark on the world and to make money and to have a home and have a family and whatever else your dreams might be. But how do we give back? How do we serve others? Because we've served ourselves first. You've always got to
mm,
serve yourself first. But if you reach a stage where you don't ever worry about paying the mortgage or the rent,
mm,
that's when we start to give back. And that's when people often you hear about people retiring and starting charities or
yeah,
running
yeah,
charitable events or giving
yeah,
back. And we all give
yeah,
back in a way at some point,
yeah.
I think.
But this thing that you mentioned brings to mind something that I want to share as an opinion, which is quite interesting, because underpinning what I desire to do is also not just what I do myself, is also trying to inspire and give stories to people who are younger, like people like ourselves, the younger versions of you and I.
Mm-hmm.
How to influence and educate the younger versions of you and I that there is another model. You don't have to go through the younger stage, pursuing all the material targets and objectives at the expense of your physical and mental health, so that in time to come you can then kind of either have early retirement or move on to dedicate your attention to charity. That's like a chronological sequence of how many of us went through in life. But there is another model, another you could take care of yourself and sense check what really is your meaning and purpose, and still pursue all the important targets in your profession or your bank account, and still be a very holistically happier person, and
Mm.
have the longevity of your success could be stretched, and you could be investing your energy and your resources in charity work or giving to others earlier on, and marry that also in parallel with the so-called the stereotypical version of what people perceive to be success. Like is another version. I would like to My dream is that there will be people who will start to see that you don't have to go from like stage one to through to three, but like the later stages of what other people who are the elders are doing could actually be brought into the earlier stages of your professional life, and you have a more
Absolutely.
rewarding and a more wholesome attitude to what life is.
I 100% agree with that. And I think we
Yeah,
are seeing that because
yeah,
the younger generations are far more dynamic than we were ever. And they've got far more tools than we ever had, right?
yeah,
Just think of
yeah,
the old
yeah,
AI world. They can achieve things quicker than we could in the old. And I always like it back to the sort of the old masculine energy, which is very linear. You had to go from A to B to C to D to E.
yeah,
But
yeah,
as we
yeah,
more embrace more of the sort of this divine feminine energy, the sort of cycle of the earth we're in right now, we're in the center and we can take bits from every part. And we don't
yeah,
need to follow it in a straight line.
yeah, precisely. And I think the perhaps there could even be a danger that's going to the other extreme. That there could be young people who are becoming a bit too lazy, thinking that everything has to be sweet and romantic and nothing
Yes,
else, right?
yes,
That could be another version. So
yes.
it's calibrating the sweet spot of being challenged enough, but also anchoring one into like the right belief system.
And I
Yeah,
think it's so hard these days, especially for parents, to be able to instill that sort of balance in a child,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
find that sweet spot where they're getting what they need, but they're not getting too much. Because
yeah,
in this generation, it's so easy to spoil a child because everything that maybe we didn't have as children growing
yeah,
up
yeah,
in my family was the clothes got passed down, right?
yeah,
There wasn't an abundance of toys. We
yeah,
just played. And these days, kids have got everything,
mm,
everything they need. They've got, haven't
mm,
they? And
mm,
more stuff they don't
mm,
even need. And
mm,
we spoil our kids. So
mm,
it's a hard being a parent these days, I think.
mm.
But I
And
100% agree with what you're saying because it's a beautiful model, and it's all about bringing balance
mm,
to the body, to not working too hard and not working, and to
yeah,
bring the
yeah,
two together so that there is that's still a quality of life, but there's no inaction.
yeah. I'm looking at the screen because the your podcast is being human, and one of the my strap line is not very catchy, so I haven't been using it very very much. But actually, my strap line is from human doing back to human being,
Mm.
right? And it's all kind of interconnected, because the thing that talking about now, with the younger generation and you and I, our attitude to what society is about and how we can give back. there is also an element of anchoring one to the philosophy of making the world a better place. And when you making the world a better place is more action uh, in is more action based, because on the one hand, if we because it seems someone who's listening to my misunderstand, it seems like, oh, then it's all about protecting yourself, being kind to yourself, feeling good. But protecting yourself, feeling good, and being in a good place is so that you can contribute to society, to community, and make the world a better place. So, I mean, in my opinion, protecting yourself, self care, being in a good place, feeling calm, when all these things happen, but it doesn't translate to making the world a happier, a better place, then
No.
you're not being human. Like, being human has an element of how you create something better to humanity, to the environment, to the world at large, the operating world at large.
Well, let's just look at you, at your story that you told to start off with, being burnt out, right? Burning the candle at both ends, managing huge teams, doing new business. That was extreme hardship. But from that extreme hardship, from that burnout, what came forward? The Ministry of Happier, right? Could you have seen that when you started your career all those years ago? No.
No,
You
no.
had to be put under pressure,
Yeah,
extreme pressure, to
yeah,
breaking point
yeah,
that caused you to go, oh, wow, there's more to life.
yeah.
Would the younger Frven ever have thought of that? No.
No, no.
We need to have hardship in our lives. Not enough to kill us, okay, but hard
Yeah,
enough to make us wake up,
yeah,
right? And to make a
yeah,
change.
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same with relationships. You can stay in a very hard, abusive relationship until it gets too painful. Then you're going to make a
Mm,
choice.
mm,
It's the
mm,
same with an analogy. It's we've all had a stone in our shoe, and we've all
mm.
walked with a stone in our shoe, going, "I must stop and take that stone out,"
Yeah,
and we don't. Which well, not there's no place to sit down. I'll do it later. We keep
yeah,
walking, and then eventually we
yeah,
do stop.
yeah,
And the relief from taking that stone out, we knew we should have done it when we first. And it's so important to experience life because I think hardship is part of being human.
yeah.
And
Precisely.
nobody has a life which is all easy. It might appear like that on social media. They
Yeah,
might show all the happy moments.
yeah,
They might have live in a fancy house and a huge house, drive a fancy car, and fly on jet holidays. But it doesn't mean they're actually happy.
mm,
It doesn't mean they're actually not going through hardship because we never
mhm.
see that. So,
Oliver, I want to ask you a question. So,
of course, you can.
how did you start? What made you conceive being human?
What made me conceive doing this podcast? Well,
Yeah,
I wanted.
and the title of being human.
Someone said to me, Oliver, you should do a podcast, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. That's the last thing on my mind. I definitely should. And I thought about it for a moment, and she said, and she was reading my Akashic records, so she was an Akashic record reader, people's podcasts,
Mm,
and she
mm,
misunderstood me in thinking that I was saying that I wanted to run a podcast.
mm,
And she said,
mm.
yes, it's in your records that you're going to start a podcast. And I went, no, I'm not. She says, yes, it's there, clear as day, and it's looking, it's like it's going to happen very soon. And in that moment, I just suddenly heard the words "being human,"
Mm, mm.
and within 3 weeks,
Yeah.
I had started this podcast. So it's actually very new.
Fantastic.
It's not. It's a few months old,
Mhm.
but it happened so quickly, and I'm enjoying it so much that I'm getting to speak to incredible people. Well, only a handful so far,
Mm.
but it's been an amazing platform to explore from different perspectives about what it means to be here, to be in this world.
Yeah,
We're all here with our unique lenses that look at the world through our interpretation,
yeah,
and we all see it differently. And we've all had different hardships. We've all had different experiences. We've all come to different, but maybe similar conclusions about what it means
mm,
to. And I was thinking, we are being, we're beings, being
Mm.
human. Because
Yeah.
actually, on a soul level or a spirit level,
Yeah.
we're not just this physical body.
Mm.
And so that, in short, is how Being Human podcast came about.
What are the have you what kind of feedback and who are the listeners, and have you had the chance to get some responses from people who are listening to the podcast, and how does
Not
it go out?
not yet. It goes out right now on YouTube. It's going
Okay.
to be on Spotify shortly, as soon as I figure out how to do all the admin stuff behind it, which I'm doing.
Mm.
And so they'll be able to listen it and download it if they wish. So right now it's just available on YouTube, but it will
Okay.
be on the other platforms
Yeah.
when I figure out how to do it. Well, actually, it's not about figuring out, when I have the time to do it. You
Mm.
know what
Mm.
happens?
Mm.
I'm very precious of my time. I think it's
Yeah.
it's one thing that all humans. I think you
Yeah.
talked about it at the beginning. You can run yourself into a hole being giving, and all you need to do is stop. And I'm very precious of that. I do stop. I do take time for myself. I do
Mm.
take breaks where, yes, I could be working, but actually I don't.
Mm.
And so there's a to-do list of
That's
things
very
that need
important.
action.
Yeah. Mm.
I will get to them when I need to get to them.
Mm. Mm.
And obviously, we all have dreams about where we want to our work to go. I'm happy for it to go wherever it needs to go to. If
Mm.
this conversation tweaks something in one person,
Yeah.
then the job's been done.
That's enough.
It doesn't have to change 1,000 people's lives.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
conversation, but
Yeah.
it sparks those little seeds of creativity in other people. Every conversation energetically has these ripples
Mm.
that ripple out into the community, into the person who's listening to it. And it doesn't mean they change, but it might plant a seed, or just like handing out flyers in London,
Yeah.
right? Spark something in you that made you take an
Yes.
action. Right?
Yes. Yes. It's incredible. And what's when as you were describing that and explaining being human, it also suddenly what came to my mind was a question or a remark you made earlier, which is, oh, it's fascinating, or maybe it's not so usual that you have someone who's an architect um, start to reconcile or think about the topic of happiness. So I want to share a little bit about this my personal view and attitude about architects, and layered with the lens of being human. So you see, what happens is architects have been trained even through uni to be there is like when you think of an architect, especially an architectural student, think of an architect, there is like a stereotypical version of what a successful and famous architect look like. Not specific the exact physical look, but the charisma, the aura, and the attitude. And architects were, in some ways, trained to not be so human. So this is the connection to being human. So what do I mean by that? Architects learned even through university, especially through their younger careers, that they have to package themselves to look effective, successful, persuasive, and has a high ego, because that is, whether that's true or not, that's what the architects believe their clients want to see.
Okay.
So the architects feel that if they go to a client and they are not the bad mannered, or or uh, being egoistic about their idea, or being a little bit too realistic, and less idealistic, then maybe their clients wouldn't value them that much. So architects then started to teach themselves in their head that that's who they are. So I might be completely wrong, but I don't think I'm so far from the truth, because I have mentored and I've coached younger architects. I myself,
I think you're probably right, because my
yeah.
father was an architect, but he was obviously
Hey,
right, very
yeah,
much an old school architect, which
yeah, yeah,
didn't have a screen. He had a drawing board,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it was very different, I think, back then. But I can definitely see what you're saying into this world, because you're creating something for someone to live in or to work from, and they want the best. So if you go and come all not dressed well and haven't
yeah,
shaved, and
yeah,
it's gonna
yeah,
you're not going to give that right impression, are you? So it's about that
yeah,
impression.
yeah. And you kind of the when you the architects, because I can say that because I was practicing. So as an architect, you want to go to a client, you almost feel that you've had a successful meeting if you have impressed your client. So much so you wouldn't mind offending the client so long as you've impressed them. You
Mm.
wouldn't want to not of you wouldn't want to not offend your client but fail to impress them, because that's not good. You have to impress them, and impressing them meant holding your ground. And even at school, when we made a design proposal, if someone criticized it, the tutor told us that you can't say that, oh, I agree, my design is no good. You have to say that, oh, I hear your point, but actually what my design was trying to do was this and this and this instead. So in my opinion, it was very good. Perhaps not
Yes.
from your point of view, but you have to defend. You have to defend, and that is not so good, because if the younger architect learned that and inculcate that kind of mindset and didn't gain wisdom from an older person and mature in how to balance viewpoints, then you give yourself, like I was, I might be feeling really awful on a typical work day, but I have to smarten myself up, because when I go to work, I have to look fresh, I have to look confident, and especially if you are a leader or manager of some kind, you got to look like you know what you're saying and what you're doing, even if you don't believe it. And in some ways, there is a delicate balance. So sometimes you need to do that, and it's okay to do that. But if you do that over the limit, you're almost like just pretending to be someone else. So it's you feel really, really tired and really down by the time you get back home, and you can allow yourself to be the real you. And over a long period, that kind of completely drains your personal battery, because you're
Absolutely,
not
yeah.
yourself.
You're almost becoming a lie.
Yeah,
You're not lying your
yeah,
trueness.
yeah.
And I think there's so much power in just being humble.
Yes,
You know, there
yes,
is so much power in that. When you do something, you do it wrong, rather than having to defend it and find another option why you're right, to actually say, actually,
yeah,
you know what? What you've said actually makes more sense than what I put on paper.
mm,
And
mm,
that can be transferable to any field,
yeah,
to anybody in this world,
yeah,
not just an architect. It could be any career.
yeah,
Is to really be humble with your knowledge, your understanding, and
yeah,
be able to change. The one thing that I always tell my clients is that they've changed.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
changed when they've spoken to me for 10 seconds. How do I
yeah,
know that? Because guess what? Their hair has grown.
mm,
I've watched you and your hair has been growing, Frven.
mm,
You've
mm,
changed,
mm,
right?
mm, mm.
And you can't deny that fact, because
Yep,
yes, yeah,
yes,
you don't notice it, you don't feel it.
yep,
One day
yep,
you look in the mirror and go, I need a shave, I need a haircut, right?
mm,
But you don't
mm,
notice it day to day. And we're
mm,
changing so fast. And so when we start to add a conscious choice to that change, to allow ourselves to be humble, to allow ourselves to be wrong sometimes, not to say give yourself, not beat yourself up, but to go,
yeah,
hey, I could have done that better. I could have
yeah,
changed that.
yeah, yeah. And that is being human, and is the integrity and being authentic to how we are both strong and fragile and making mistakes, that allows us the ability to learn new lessons in life and be able to contribute to something else, to someone else, like a bit better than yesterday.
So if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way for them to get hold of you?
So the best way for people to get hold of me is to go to my website, which is super simple. One word, the ministry of happier, one word.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
can find everything you're doing. Have you got anything big happening in the next time? Anything, any events happening? Anything that
I
you're
have, I have two. Actually, no, I have more than two. I have several gigs coming up in Singapore where I am teaching people to play the ukulele. So when I'll be back in Singapore for the summer break. I bring my two daughters back to see family. So when I'm back, I do have some business, but I don't see it as business because it is business. But I'm having a lot of fun teaching people to play the ukulele
You're
too.
supposed to have fun when you're working. This
Yeah,
idea
yeah,
that
yeah.
work's got to be painful and horrible, that's got to stop,
Exactly,
right? This world
exactly.
we live in is not about having painful work experiences. Let's
Yeah,
let's stop that.
yeah.
Doesn't mean work's not going to be
Brightening up
hard,
someone
but it's
else's
got,
life.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the most exciting thing that's happening. And then I'm also working on a new edition of my first book. I've written 6 books. The first ever was 3.5 years ago. It's called Wellbeing and Happiness Through Architecture and Design. So the new edition of the book will come out maybe towards Christmas. And in the new edition, I've invited two new great friends that I've got to know who are architectural practitioners still, for them to share their own layer of, through their practice, well-being and happiness through architecture and design. And that so is the second edition of my first book that's coming out towards Christmas.
And you said 6 books. What are the other 5
Yeah.
about?
So the other 5, one of them is Happier Architects. One of them is Happier Professionals.
Funny
One of
that.
them is Happier, which is like a fiction. Is described, is fundamentally prompting people to 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 resonate with the challenges of our modern day life, and having short stories, almost like Aesop's fables, that
Mm,
help people to actually is no different from your little narrative about a little pebble in the shoe, because it could be super simple story, but it's so simple that if someone listens to it and gives it enough attention, there is so much that they can ponder about it in the way they operate their daily lives. So that tends to be the way that I play with things and how I educate, make it very palatable, but at the
yeah,
same time, is like very small things having very big potential to influence and make life better.
amazing. I think I need to go and check your website out and get at some of your books because I'm sure they are very, very worthwhile. I'll maybe skip the architecture books, but definitely
Yeah,
the little short stories. That sounds right up my street. Uh,
that's great. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll send you a copy. Yeah,
Frven, it's been such a pleasure and a joy speaking to you, to someone who embraces happiness and being happy in daily life and is
yeah,
talking about it continually and doing their charitable work and going in and helping people remember the words of songs. And
yeah.
it's just what an incredible journey. So,
Thank you. Yeah,
if there was one thing you'd want to share with people about being human, what would that be?
I
I know we
think.
touched on many things. You,
Yeah,
what would that be?
yeah. I think. I think for me, if it is really one thing, it still comes back to um, making sure that your own cup is well filled. Because in all sense of the word, whether we take it as a pun or not, like when your own cup is not well filled, not a lot else
Yeah,
can happen that can be for the betterment of either yourself, the people near you, or the environment. Making sure that our own cup is well filled and desiring to make the world a better place.
perfect. What a beautiful, beautiful statement. 100% agree with you. You've got to
Thank you.
fill your own cup. The only way you
Yeah,
make the world a better place, only way you make your world a better place,
yeah,
people around you, is by being full of
yeah,
energy, full of joy, full of
yeah,
life, full of happiness, full of all of it.
yeah.
My friend,
Wanting to do good, bring joy. That's it.
thank you so much for taking time out of your day on this
Thank
super
you.
hot London day. It's been
Yep.
a real privilege and honor to speak with you.
Thank
And
you.
I really look forward to still connecting with you on other times, other projects, and reading your book. Thank you,
Thank
my
you
friend.
very much. Thank you for having me. Right. Cheers, Oliver.